Alright, we will begin with chapter 3 this time. We're going to continue from chapter 3. Chapter 3 starts with Jason. I'm sitting in a cafe in my small town and my AirPods aren't working. I think I'm going to die from overstimulation. I took what the hell is this? Vyvanse this morning, so let's hope that helps. Honestly, I probably wouldn't need Vyvanse to focus if I hadn't spent half my life playing computer games. Oh well. What the hell is Vyvanse, bro? I took Vyvanse, so okay. It's crowded here, but I recognize a few faces. I don't know their names, but it's the first time I've stayed in one place long enough to feel this sense of familiarity. The last time I was in this coffee shop, it was with Jason, my federal agent. Given it wasn't a random knock at the door, I was more prepared for the chat. We shook hands, exchanged a polite hello, and excused myself to the washroom. In front of the mirror, I stared at my reflection, swallowed hard, took a breath, and pulled the recording device from my pocket. A tiny DJI mic. I clipped it to the center of my bra and hit record, the soft beep confirming it was live. Leaning forward, I shifted side to side, checking to make sure it wasn't visible. The thought of it running out of battery mid-conversation and beeping made me nauseous. Before each meeting, I'd show Jason my phone was turned off, but I'd been in this world too long to risk getting caught in some entrapment mess. There was always a contingency. I returned to the line, nodded at Jason, and smiled like everything was normal. Then, as if pulled from a screenplay, a mother from my son's school walked up to say hello. It was almost laughable, two completely separate worlds crashing together. Jason and I both had to pretend this was just another casual morning. I still didn't know exactly how much trouble I was in, but I knew I couldn't let anyone find out. It felt like a hostage situation. I wondered, if I blinked twice, would she help me escape? She asked if I was working. I couldn't tell if she was trying to gauge whether I was on a date with Jason. I just smiled and said it was a business meeting, then quickly ended the conversation, turning back to my increasingly tense standoff with the agent. He had been relentless, trying to coax me into lunch and dinner outings with him, just as pals. I declined, telling him that if he had something important to say, he could do so directly, but I wouldn't engage in casual outings. He'd whine in a flirty way, insisting he was just a human who needs to eat too, before slipping in questions about my quite intentionally non-existent dating life. When it was finally our turn at the counter, Jason ordered a coffee for himself, and despite me saying I didn't want anything, got a second cup of hot water for me. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was to make us look more natural, just like two friends grabbing a drink. Hard to decipher with these government types. The first time Jason showed up at my house, he was with another female agent whose name I can't quite remember. They brought the local RCMP to confirm they were real and flashed CSIS badges at me. They both wore leather jackets, and she seemed to be wearing a wig. Honestly, the worst part was that I vaguely recognized them both. We must have crossed paths at some point, and the thought unsettled me. When they sat me down, they told me they'd been tracking me since before the before the indictment dropped. They knew about my previous negative experiences with federal agents, specifically with my ex-husband. What the fuck? She married an agent? What the fuck? Okay, but assured me we're not like other feds. Was this some kind of joke? They mentioned which of my videos they liked, clearly having watched plenty of my content and done extensive research. I never saw the woman again. It was pretty clear they had sent both agents to gauge which one I'd warm up to more. While she spoke in soft, reassuring tones, there was a coldness behind the act, something disingenuous. Jason, on the other hand, was better at his job. Very good, actually. He reminded me of a journalist who had spent 4 years building a friendship with me, only to write a completely one-sided and, in some instances, slanderous hit piece. With Jason, it felt like talking to someone I'd known for years. The way he casually mentioned my sister, how we had very different jobs, how he talked about my career and old friends, it was unnerving. He even asked me to guess how they'd found me, remarking on how I keep a low profile. As mentioned, I use fake names for everything. The one thing I couldn't fake, though, was the firearms transfer to my new rental. Jason smiled and said, "You'd make a good agent in another life." Then he added, "But no, we found you before that transfer went through." Of course, he knew about it anyways. I made a few more guesses, but he refused to tell me unless I agreed to work with them. At that point, I was pissed. My friends and I had often joked over the years, saying, "I wonder what the feds think of this conversation, or what would they say about that post?" On some level, I always suspected I was being monitored, but you can't dwell on that kind of thing, or you'll end up thinking the birds are drones spying on you. But here I was, faced with a confirmation of my most schizophrenic thoughts. Flesh and blood agents standing on my doorstep. Tenet Media, the company I've been making political videos for over the past year, had honestly just been a job. I was frustrated with the sheer volume of clickbait they pushed me to produce, but they never told me what to say, and there was certainly no mention of alleged clandestine operations behind the scenes. How was any of this happening? Even as I write this, I worry that my computers are being monitored. In any other situation, this would sound paranoid, maybe even delusional, but when CSIS shows up at your door, it's just a new reality. Vienna by Billy Joel just started playing in the cafe. It had always had a bittersweet sitting to it. Oh, fuck. It always had a I can't say this sentence. It always had a bittersweet sting to it. Bro, this is a tongue twister. It always had a bittersweet sting. It always had a bittersweet sting to it. When I was off traveling, seeing the world and building in my life, my dad would tell me that song reminded him of me. It was his way of telling me to slow down, to enjoy life, and not to rush through it. But now here I am, stuck, unable to even go to the States without the risk of being picked up by the FBI. The irony of it all is almost comical. Who will believe that a YouTuber, of all things, will be living in a damn spy movie? A stupid one at that, given I'm certain this country has worse problems than the Tenet Media debacle. Still, the song plays, and can't help but laugh at the lyrics. I did slow down, Billy Joel. I did, but the phone is still on, and Jason keeps texting. As for taking a breather before I burn out, too late. I already scorched the whole thing. The speed, the chaos, the everything. I pushed too hard and broke something inside me, not just in my career, but in my very sense of self. Chapter 4. Something has been lost. Let's see. So, someone named Joshua Turk wrote on an Instagram story, something has been lost, and awareness of a previous world is evaporating. People regularly walk across the street now looking at their phones. Drivers staring at their phones too. Record number of pedestrians deaths, they say. Cops don't give tickets anymore because they're looking at their phones. The shuttle driver at the airport bus station wouldn't look up from his phone this morning when I asked if I could board the shuttle. Why would he? The window into the surreality is more seductive than his wage. The same old dipshit questions. The physical world is already shaped by market manipulations, but it is still physically difficult as physical things are. Life is slow magic. You gotta wait for, work for, observe without reward. There are quicker ways for our brains to get high. Out of my window are green trees, blackberry bushes, ivy, blowing in a cold wind I can't feel. Only can bathe in the green side of what I remember to be the world that we've all forgotten. Alright, now back to Lauren speaking. I didn't dig too deep into this in the chapter of my childhood, but the real cherry on top of my right-wing evangelical upbringing was my relationship with my sister. She avoided social events, rarely left the house, and spent most of our childhood and teen years immersed in video games. These days, she's opened up to the world and become a successful Twitch streamer. Looking back, our neurodivergence and all that screen time actually has some unexpected benefits. Still, it wasn't exactly a textbook childhood. It shaped how we interacted with the world or maybe avoided it. Our dad worked in tech, so we had computers in the house earlier than most. One of my first memories is sitting in the computer closet of our basement suite, playing Descent, a 1995 first-person shooter at 3 years old. My sister was a little older and picked up the tech faster. She was a total wizard with computers. She'd win video editing competitions, and her blogs, artwork, and gaming stats always performed well. I idolized her and would spend hours sitting on her floor watching whatever she did online. Her agoraphobic tendencies definitely peaked during our early teens. It felt like the sisters in Disney Frozen movie. I knocked on her door asking if we could build a snowman, but all I could get was an agreement to watch her edit gay fanfic videos of Kirk and Spock. If I didn't tell mom and dad, a win is a win. Those videos ended up garnering hundreds of thousands of views early on YouTube. What the fuck? No way. Alright, first of all, what is agoraphobic? I need to know what that is. Agoraphobic. Extrinsic disorder is characterized by a fear of situations where escape might be difficult or help might not be. Often avoidance just conclude being okay, interesting. This is avoidance, huh? And what is Kirk and Spock? Gay fanfic. What the hell is this? That's so weird. Okay, anyways. That dynamic shaped my internet habits. Our sisterly bond was rooted in video games, even back in the N64 days, and many of my early friendships were formed through online gaming and blogging in the early 2000s. We're probably among the first generation to experience formative romantic relationships online. Both my sister and I had our first boyfriends on platforms like RuneScape and Gaia Online, complete with double E dates and tearful breakups over boys we never met. Boys who, in hindsight, may have been adults pretending to be 13-year-olds. What the fuck? Once again, no surprise, we both became internet creators, considering how much of our development took place online. We were also the last generation to know the internet before it became a product. It was an era that feels almost mythical now, a time before the algorithms and corporate strategies took over. If you're a millennial like me, you know what I'm talking about. The early days of YouTube when it really was YouTube. It was the first time in history where individuals could create, share, and put themselves out there without a barrier. There were no middlemen, no casting calls, no executives telling you if you were good enough. All it took was a camera, an idea, and the willingness to put yourself out there. But those days are gone. It's like that era of the internet never existed, vanishing a kind of digital memoricide. In its place, a sanitized corporate playground built to serve tech giants and media conglomerates. You see it in how TikTok youth stars end up on late night shows or land movie deals. Social media is being folded into the old machine. The agencies, the contracts, the gatekeepers, they're already here. What was once a haven for the underdog is becoming just another rung in the ladder of industry. I can't explain my life, my choices, or my journey without acknowledging that era, the one that allowed people like me to rise without compromise. Early YouTube was chaos in 480p. Shoes. A man in drag screaming about footwear. Oh, I remember that video, bro. Guy, if you know Shoes, dude. Shoes was like one of the first music videos I've ever heard, and I was like a kid back then. It was like this, dude. It's crazy. How old is it? Bro, no, it's not even on here. Shoes. Music. No way, bro. Where is it at? Shoes music video. Shoe. Yes, here it is. Right over here. 18 years ago. 18 years ago. That's 2000 something. Let's get some. Alright, anyway. It's pretty funny. What else we got? And Fred, a sped up 13-year-old with a dysfunctional home life. There were no rules, just attention. The appeal was in the sheer insanity of it all. I recently saw an Instagram reel of a young Orlando Bloom watching one of the earliest viral memes. They're taking the Hobbits to Isengard, a 2006 techno remix of the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. He was reciting the remix lyrics with a grin, surrounded by other cast members laughing as they shot the first of the Hobbit trilogy. Watching the old footage gave me a melancholic feeling, a reminder of how early internet content was driven by simple, pure intention, spreading laughter. The Hobbits to Isengard video was uploaded 19 years ago and has amassed over 41 million views. The uploader remains largely anonymous, with no website, subscription options, ads, or even a modest OnlyFans account to monetize the unexpected fame his little edit brought him. Contrast that with the rise of the Haktua girl. Within weeks of her viral TikTok, Haley Welch had a podcast deal, was opening concerts, launching merch, and even creating a scam cryptocurrency. In today's internet, any burst of attention must be monetized instantly. You're expected to build a fortress of followers, emails, and content fast or risk vanishing. Even legacy meme pages aren't safe. I signed up for funny cat videos, and now I'm being sold sex toys and getting invited to live stream poker nights with dudes named Crypto Jeff. And while today's hyper-personalized algorithms can feed you videos endlessly, an infinite loop of niche content tailored to your specific digital echo chamber, which, let's be honest, feels borderline psychosis-inducing, back then a single viral video could define an entire month. Harry Potter Puppet Pals, Charlie the Unicorn, Numa Numa. Finding one of those gems felt like striking gold. You'd bike to a friend's house just to show them. That was the magic, not just the content, but the shared experience. Even gaming back then wasn't seamless. I once hauled my entire desktop computer into my 95 Corolla for a Crusader Kings LAN party. Console gaming meant basements, tangled cords, and duct tape blankets to stop screen peeking and Halo. The internet was integrated into real life, and it was human. Every blog, video, and forum post was created and moderated by actual people. Now we're navigating a landscape shaped by bots and guided by algorithms, where even our memories feel machine curated. Automation promises convenience, but something meaningful is always lost in the process. More money doesn't mean better content. Often, the most impactful work comes from passionate creators working for free. That's been true in my own experience. My most viral videos were almost always the least profitable. The early internet wasn't about getting rich, it was about loving what you did. Passion can't be bought. A few years ago, I watched White Hot Netflix documentary about Abercrombie and Fitch, a wildly popular clothing brand in the early 2000s known for its airbrush models and exclusive image. It framed the company's image curation tactics as a shocking scandal. Turns out they were not only hiring hot people to sell clothes to other hot people. Shocked and appalled, who knew the vibe-based hiring policy of no uggos allowed might be exclusionary? But what's funny is, that's just business as usual now. Influencer culture runs on the same principle, has simply been digitized, scaled, and dressed up as authenticity. Today, brands don't need storefronts to shape public perception. They have filters, algorithms, and micro-celebrities. Influencers aren't picked for passion or belief, but for how well they can sell a vibe. The manipulation hasn't gone away, it has just become harder to trace. There's no single face behind the machine anymore, only a million polished proxies. It almost feels like Abercrombie got chewed out for doing what everyone does now, just unapologetically and in person. With Facetune in our pockets, we've all joined the game of no uggos allowed. We just excuse it by pretending the screen makes it less real, like it's not quietly destroying our collective psyche. I call it scary, but honestly, I say this as one of the first political influencers of the millennial generation. It's nothing compared to whatever god-awful political system we'll end up with once we realize we're building digitally curated governments. Not to mention, if you think the manipulation of beauty opinions is bad, just wait until you see the money being spent to control political narratives. It's enough to make you want to throw your phone into the ocean. I used to believe with every fiber of my being that the internet would liberate us from the gatekeeping of corporate and political elites. That ordinary people's voices will be heard and would challenge corruption, not become a part of it. Even just a decade ago, including ad read in your video could get you labeled a sellout, especially if you were political. You're making this about money? How can we trust you now? The backlash was harsh, but I think people's instincts were right. Losing those instincts hasn't taken us anywhere good. That was the environment I entered as a creator, idealistic, raw, unpolished, and driven by the belief that I could make a difference. The illusion wouldn't begin to crack until I was already deep inside the machine. Alright, now it's chapter 5. I'm gonna drink some water because my throat is getting a little, croaky, dude. Wish my throat was better. Oh, yes. Alright. Goodbye reality, hello virality. In 2015, at just 19 years old, I went viral online. It was a year before Donald Trump's election, and I became locked in the whirlwind of one of the most significant political media eras in history. I dislike revisiting this period of my life, not because it was particularly sad or depressing. In fact, the start of my media career was full of hope, passion, and the kind of excitement that only comes when everything feels possible. The reason I loathe recounting it is because I was an idiot. Not uniquely so, just young, but for some reason I thought my teenage self deserved to be immortalized online, setting the tone for my entire adult life. Maybe your mistake was a bad tattoo, a worse marriage, or a useless degree. Mine was going viral, and in a world ruled by Google, that's just as permanent. Part of writing this book is about trying to understand why I made those choices. What the hell was I thinking? I don't know exactly how the mind works, and neither, it seems, do the people who've devoted their entire lives to studying it. What I do know about my own, though, is that I'm extremely good at repression. Don't like that memory? Delete. Day's awesome again. Yay! For a long time, I thought that was kind of superpower, but I'm slowly coming to terms with the idea that maybe it wasn't. Maybe all that stuff I tried to bury is still there, just waiting for its moment to resurface. And now, it's all catching up with me. Still, I can't deny that papering over the bad stuff, mentally hitting delete on awkward or painful memories, had its upsides. In a strange way, it fueled the most defining part of my teenage mindset. I was a pure dopamine machine, wired for joy, resilient in a way I didn't question. I could bounce back from disappointment, breakups, humiliation, even life-changing events like I was invincible. I remember my thrifted Converse runners falling apart on the way home from school and ripping off my socks to run barefoot down the street, laughing with early 2000s techno blasting in my ears. I felt unstoppable, perpetually fearless. I couldn't wait to graduate and become whoever I wanted to be. I couldn't understand why others didn't see it the same way. As mentioned, after leaving my private Christian school, I got a taste of the average suburban high school experience. I was nerdier and more sheltered than most of my peers, but that didn't stop me from going to a party or two. I recall greening out from my first and last water bottle bond hit at 16. I remember driving around with friends perched on the roof of my car, watching their legs swing off the side, wondering if they were still holding on. We played Nicky Nicky Nine Doors and drank Pabst Blue Ribbon under the bleachers, feeling like the biggest rebels on the planet. However, those little acts of defiance were rare. I was far more consumed by my books, sports, and video games. But I reckon any small rebellion felt more intense and memorable for me than for my peers. It was such a stark contrast to my evangelical upbringing. My naivety made me a target for teasing back then, but I didn't mind. I was just happy to be there. I graduated in 2013, despite having nothing but a few $100 to my name and no college fund. I applied to study political science. I didn't have a clear plan to pay for it, but I wanted to be the first in my family to earn a degree, and I was determined to make it happen. My first option was to work multiple jobs and take a few classes each semester. I started this path, juggling jobs at EB Games, a local casino, my university bar, and summer camp. It just barely paid for my first few courses, but I couldn't even afford gas. I was exhausted and showed in my grades. The second option was to join the military. They covered my schooling and speed up the process. By 18, I began applications and testing. During this period, I had moments where I felt the urge to reconnect with my Christian roots, but because my faith had been shaped more by social pressure and memorized Bible stories than my personal conviction, it never really sank in. I longed for the secular world I had been so carefully shielded from as a kid. Slowly but surely, my faith faded into little more than the occasional nagging thought, one I quickly pushed aside, unwilling to let it make me feel guilty for enjoying life. In between university classes and work, I started spending time with a group of friends who, like me, didn't exactly see a traditional path ahead. We were broke, rebellious, and felt like the only way to cope with the weight of adulthood creeping in was to laugh in his face. Chaos wasn't just part of the fun, it was the point. We hung out wherever there was space, usually someone's parents' basement. Nights were filled with poker, cheap liquor, late-night philosophical ramblings, and increasingly unhinged games of truth or dare. I still have a belly button piercing from losing one of those dares, though at least I dodged the litany of ridiculous tattoos my friends gave each other, scream laughing through the pain. Really, that was the goal. If it made us laugh or unsettle someone slightly more respectable, it was a win. At the time, we weren't trying to make a statement, but looking back, it was all resistance in a way. A resistance against growing up, against becoming our parents, against a system that promised nothing but debt, burnout, and beige office walls. We didn't yet know how bad things like the Canadian housing market was going to be, but we could feel something was off, like we were living the afterglow of a dying dream. Every little prank or dare felt like a tiny rebellion against a world we knew would eventually ask more of us than we could give. Ironically, much like in high school, my embrace of conservative politics, at least intellectually, not in practice, was part of that same rebellious instinct. At my university, I sat beside a guy in a hammer and sickle hat, which didn't raise an eyebrow. One of my English professors was teaching us to decolonize language by spelling things wrong and claiming words were violence. What the fuck? I found it all nauseating. I wasn't looking for tradition so much as I was looking for anyone willing to question this new orthodoxy. Wait, what? They were teaching this in Canadian public schools, bro? Hold on a second. Oh, that was at university. Okay. So, Sapahaya communists. And an English professor was teaching them to decolonize language by spelling things wrong. And words were violence. The hell was it? What? Bro, their brains are so twisted, bro. Canadian political commentator Urza Levent wasn't new to me. He was often on the TV at home, part of the background noise of my dad's media diet. But when I saw he was hosting a youth conference in Toronto in 2014, something clicked. They were even covering flights in a hotel. I applied and got in. On the plane, I devoured Urza's book, Groundswell, The Case for Fracking, buzzing with the sense that this might be my shot at something bigger. The conference itself felt surreal. I met a young Raquel Dancho long before she entered politics, and we bantered about hopes and dreams like two idealists with no idea what was coming. I was just a first-year poli-sci student, but for a weekend, I belonged like I finally stepped into a world that took my discontent with the status quo seriously. When I flew home, I let myself dream about finding my way back to that world, but by 2015, the glow was fading. Reality was closing in, and that weekend felt more like a brief detour than a new path. I was filling out military applications, answering emails from recruiters, telling myself it was time to grow up and get serious. Then, an unexpected message landed in my inbox from Urza's team. He just launched a YouTube channel called, of all things, Rebel Media. They wanted me to make a video. At the time, the channel had just a few hundred views. I said yes, figuring it'd be a one-off, just a cool story, an excuse to vent about things pissing me off at university. Feminist, maybe. I could get in trouble, but no one's really going to see it anyway. I couldn't have been more wrong. My first video, Why I'm Not a Feminist, went viral in ways I never could have imagined. Although it now only shows 1.2 million views on YouTube, it amassed nearly 40 million on Facebook and was copied and shared on dozens of other channels until they were wiped by copyright enforcement. I first realized it had gone viral when one of my friends pulled it up on his computer in the basement. We were all in disbelief. We never even known anyone who had gotten a fraction of those views on YouTube before. I figured it was a one-time thing, just a lucky break. But Rebel encouraged me to make more videos, and to my surprise, the next few also took off. My life as I knew it ceased to exist after this. My 19-year-old self was frozen in time. Most of my late teen friends eventually grew up. They found jobs and trades, started families. I hope they're happy, they deserve it. They grew up. I went viral. As I ventured into politics and fame, many of my relationships faded in the wake of ambition. I wasn't ready for the adventure to end, and I didn't think anyone else could understand. What I couldn't see then was that my rebellion, though rooted in real political economic frustration, was also just part of being a teenager. I didn't realize how my disdain for the structured, mundane world of adulthood was one of my most self-destructive traits. Instead of seeing the failures of adults around me as lessons and holding myself to a higher standard, I chose to reject their world entirely. Responsibility, discipline, not in this world they left us. I become a conservative revolutionary, accelerating chaos until everyone else realized they needed to change. Never stopped to consider that my refusal to embrace any structure myself was part of the same cycle of decline I was criticizing. Though in rejecting real-world structure, I stumbled into a digital version that mimicked connection but lacked all the meaningful guidance. Everyone wants to find a place where they're loved and needed. Growing up, your family and friends should celebrate your wins and point out your flaws. Social failures teach you what to improve about yourself. If you don't make adjustments, you face consequences like losing friends, job opportunities, romantic relationships, and even being disowned by family. These boundaries guide people toward adulthood and traits that allow them to be part of a healthy community. I like that. You know what? This is something I feel like she wanted to write to point out. Should I add it into a? Let me see if I add it here. So basically what we have is oops, wrong one, not that. We have is grab that here. Oh, it's too small. Damn it. Come on. There we go. Oh, alright, whatever. Let me just blow this up a bit. Why is it so small? What shape did I select? Oh, because I'm zoomed in, zoomed out too much? Wait. No, it's not that. Wait, why is it not round? Oh, there we go, okay. So, where's the text at? Why is it that small? Alright, so what we have here is everyone wants to find a place where they're loved and needed. That's one thing. Should I just make a sticky note instead? Or not. Maybe not. And then we also have, let's see. Growing up, your family and friends should celebrate your wins and point out your social. They should point out your flaws. Social failures teach you what to improve yourself. If you don't make adjustments, you face consequences like losing them. These boundaries guide people toward adulthood and traits that allow alright. No, this is good enough, alright? So basically, that leads to this, I guess. And then we have and then rebellion against this. She also says that rebelling against this. I'm just trying to kind of like a train of thought here, basically. Against this is just teenage rebellion stage. Against this social structure, I guess. Alright, I think leave it at that. Alright. The internet has created a new kind of community, one where people don't truly know you but offer the same social approval and disapproval as real communities. However, the validation you get online is even more intoxicating than in the real world. You can access it at any point and acquire validation at rates simply impossible to achieve in real life. Levels of social attention that, like a spicy Dorito chip, kill a medieval peasant. Adolescent immaturity and egoism usually fade with time and experience, but I wasn't in normal circumstances. I've been thrown into a world that rewarded my most antisocial traits with mass approval, while critiquing me in ways that were at best unhelpful and more often just cruel. Welcome to the internet. The saying people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care is one of the truest I've ever heard. And yet, my early internet engagement was a perfect demonstration of its opposite, a total train wreck where neither my critics nor I truly listened to each other. Hold on a second. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Alright. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if they know you care a lot, then they care about how much you know. If they know you care a lot, then they care about how much you know. It's a bit weird though. I guess it's a converse. Given my first viral video was a takedown of feminism, I decided to double down on the topic, this time taking it to the streets. Much of my early fame stemmed from attending and mocking slut walk protests that were popular across Canada and the United States in the mid-2010s. These events were a phenomenon where women protested against the notion of victim blaming, specifically the idea that she deserved it because of what she wore, by marching down the street partially or fully naked. Okay. I understand the criticism I received. In hindsight, it's painfully obvious that it wasn't the wisest choice to show up at emotionally charged protests, challenge women on their traumas, engage them in debates, and laugh at them, especially as someone who, at the time, had little to no personal experience with those same traumas. I show up in a pencil skirt, chasing women through protests with a microphone in hand, eager to confront rather understand. Posting those encounters online where they racked up millions of views on Rebel Media only amplified the insensitivity. I did have a small inkling this might not be the best idea, but it was quickly dismissed by the environment I found myself in. I even remember apologizing on Twitter to a few girls I interviewed after filming my first slut walk video, telling them I wouldn't use the footage because they were underage. But my online apology quickly became a work issue, and I received an email from Urza saying, "We don't allow our news subjects to veto coverage. We're known for showing it like it is, not letting our enemies censor us." In the end, I apologized to Rebel for caving to the Twitter mob, and the footage of the girls was published. I didn't have much of a sense of self yet, so of course the guy I'd grown up watching on TV won that exchange. Of course, I thought I had to choose his side over the so-called woke mob. What I lacked was the wisdom to see that I didn't need to fully align with the left or the right to understand that catching 13-year-olds stumbling over their words wasn't a debunking of any ideology. Worse still, immortalizing their words to mock them was even more pathetic. I've come to be mortified by the entire genre of man on the street humiliation clips that undoubtedly helped pioneer with my viral anti-feminist content in 2015. While I never took it this far, it's painfully clear that most of these videos follow the same formula. Interview countless people, edit it down to the worst 10 caught in their dumbest moments, and present this as representative of an entire gender or ideology for maximum clicks and outrage. I had no idea what a Pandora's box of stupidity I was opening. I now watch each one like Oppenheimer, gazing upon his nuclear bomb with regret, but I should have seen it coming. I just had to read my own comments section. Oh man, I mean, I guess it's obvious if you look at outside too. Like a lot of political crap you see now, is the same thing. Everyone just taking the worst of each other. Everyone's doing nowadays. Hate it. One of the many problems with the internet is that most spiritually mature people avoid the melodrama of it all. They don't waste time posting snarky comments. Instead, it's the emotionally triggered and lonely who dominate the conversation, often spewing hostility. I never really saw comments unpacking the deeper issues with my content. Instead, the comments I spent hours reading late at night, scrolling on my phone before bed, were not only unproductive, but often downright deranged. You should kill yourself. I hope you get raped. You hate women. I can't believe you support rapists. Caught between the, albeit understandable, misunderstandings of my views and the overwhelming vitriol, engaging with any of them became impossible. I would think, of course I'm against rape, yet they want me to be a victim. Who's really in the wrong here? The algorithms, though still primitive at the time, began to shape my thinking. The hate only served to fortify my resolve. My critics became demons in my eyes, and I saw no reason to listen to them. What began as a mission to defend men from what I perceive as hysterical women resorting to nudity in lieu of argument evolved into a fight for my own self-preservation against a relentless wave of slander. On the flip side, millions of comments expressed admiration, urging me to stay the course or amplify my behavior. This led to a kind of mental stasis where I had no reason to change and every reason to keep leaning into my most extreme divisive behaviors. But what no one seemed to realize at the time or since is that the version of me that came through in those early videos for Rebel Media wasn't really me. Sure, I was honest about what I believed in those moments, but I didn't actually behave or speak the way I did in those clips in my day-to-day life. When Urza invited me to contribute to his channel, I was already deeply familiar with conservative media. I devoured countless hours of it since grade school, and I was still that people-pleasing kid who craved approval and guidance. I wanted to impress Urza and the conservative audience that I'd grown up admiring. I guess, alright, let's go back. I think it's kind of true that, I mean, look at her. She consumed a whole bunch of content, right? She kind of is what she looks at. You look at all that, that's what you become, and that's what she went through. She consumed all that. I mean, it's not really bad, though. It is what she is. She kind of just shows who she is, that's it. But, then she doesn't really want to be like them. They're too extreme. I had become, in a way, like an AI bot programmed with everything I could find to thrive in the conservative media landscape. Give me a prompt, and I delivered the perfectly crafted right-wing approved response. When I filmed my first video, Why I'm Not a Feminist, I didn't just shoot it and send it to Urza. I filmed it and refilmed it over and over. I wrote in the style of Bill O'Reilly monologue, aiming for that straightforward, confident flow reminiscent of Ben Shapiro. In my confrontational protest videos, I borrowed a page from Michael Savage with his rootless snapbacks. I put on bright red lipstick to look like the women on TV. I even tried to disguise my deep voice as I spoke, a trait I was embarrassed by. And despite having... Oh, fuck, bro. I'm embarrassed by my fucking voice, bro. And despite having less than $1,000 to my name, I spent what little I had paying an editor to make it look like a legitimate news report. This reminds me of one person, actually. Alright, I think there's someone that went through something really similar. Her name is Lauren Dalton. Let me go find it. See if I can find her. Lauren Dalton. Which one was it? Lauren Dalton. Something about cleaning business. Yeah, this girl. She made a video early on that went viral. Alright, if you go to her most viral is this. And it's, I'm a female who likes Andrew Tate. Alright, and she just starts explaining. Although I don't think she didn't go the same, but they're both Laurens. I just realized that. Lauren Southern. What was the video she's called? Why I'm Not a Feminist? Oh, it's this one. Yo, actually, this is years ago. It's not. It was just. And these are the comments she's talking about here. That's like, so like weird, I guess. Alright, no one commented and read the book yet, bro. I just read it. Rebel News. Do you know that 8% of students read that? Blah, 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 join. Oh, bro, this is so, like, ew now. Alright. Anyways. I feel bad for her. I don't mean it was all some calculated plan to emulate anyone. The more I look back, the more I realize how embarrassingly unintentional it all was. At present, I don't allow my son to use iPads or access the internet, except to watch old reruns of shows like Rupert or Little Bear from the 90s. We'll also play some of the older Mario games I had as a kid in moderation. Bro, so she's just like her mom now. She's just like her mom now, and her kid's gonna grow up like, yo, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that, bro? It says, man. So does she agree finally? Is it bad to rebel? Who knows? I still think as a kid you're right, but or at least not completely. You know, maybe I might be wrong too. Fuck. Okay. Anyways, still the reality is that many kids his age are already hooked. I understand why parents give in to the convenience of digital entertainment for their children. I've even broken down during visits, saying, "Fine, go ahead and watch with your friend." When another parent pulls out an iPad, my son's eyes light up as though he's won the lottery. He can't believe he's finally getting a glimpse of the magic box. That's off limits at home. And of course, parents reassure each other that it's set to YouTube Kids mode, which, as far as I'm concerned, is basically the same as handing a toddler a cigarette and saying relax. It's got an extra long filter. The other day, while making breakfast, I heard my son at the table playing with his Lego Optimus Prime casually say, "And at the end of this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe." My stomach tightened. I felt like the world was spinning. It was as though the horrors of the modern world I had always feared were now reflected back at me. This was a nightmare reality, where everything is a performance and nothing's ever valued for its own sake, only as a spectacle for an audience. Society's behaviors ebb and flow like waves of trends and hashtags. Nothing permanent, nothing sacred, nothing real. I'm losing my voice, bro. I need a drink. Oh yeah, no great value. Alright, let's continue. She's a mother now, huh? I saw myself in him, a fragment of the same corruption clinging to his mind, a desire to emulate the addictive dopamine-driven content that the world holds in such high regard. He had no real understanding of what he was saying. He didn't know what likes or subscriptions meant, and he told me as much. He only knew that in the videos he watched with friends, people always said that at the end. Kids want to fit in. They want to become part of the world around them and do so with skill. Just as my son didn't fully understand his compulsion to say, "Please like and subscribe," I hadn't fully recognized my own tendency to mimic the environment I was in. The trap was twofold. First, I went viral and that version of me became frozen in time. Second, that version wasn't even real. It was a reflection of the media I'd been immersed in. The ego is deceptive though. Instead of seeing how little power I had over the whirlwind of virality, I felt more in control than ever. I believed I had a future, one where I would be loved and admired by millions, and one that would make my family proud. In my mind, it would have been madness not to follow that path. I never looked back. It's hard to admit how easily I left people behind. Though I didn't realize it then, I was also leaving behind the version of myself I had always known, chasing a life that felt big and exciting. The idea of staying in my hometown, watching everything change or fade, felt unbearable. If the world was going to shift, I wanted to move faster than it was. I didn't have words for it, but I was suffering from what C.S. Lewis called shut. The fuck is that? Or longing for an unknown joy and purpose. The trouble was, I was looking for it all in all the wrong places. So what? Were you supposed to look for itself or something? Let me type the word she was saying. Session. Right? Oh no. Oh dang it. Suck. What a weird word. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Suck. It's yearning, huh? Just yearning for something. Bro, I yearn too, not gonna lie, bro. I yearn too. I want a good life, right? Is that bad? Yeah, it's probably an attachment though. Okay. Because instead of joy, I found chaos. The rise, the fall, the mistakes that break the ego, but that will come later. For now, I was just getting ready for takeoff. Chapter 6. I'm only on page 33, bro. Damn. Chapter 6. Can I keep going? What time is it? Let's keep going. Actually, how long is this chapter? Oh damn, it's long as fuck. Damn. Okay. I don't know if I can do it, bro. I don't know if I can do it. Chapter 6, Content Machine. No, I can't do it. I gotta take a break. I gotta take a break, bro. My throat is dying, bro. Hey, yo, if you're listening to this still without getting bored, that's amazing, bro. If for some reason you're listening to me and then you fell asleep like I did, as well as you, freaking Ivan, then you suck, bro. You're stupid, dumbass.